Hello, my name is Larry. This is my testimony of a short life so far that hopefully will be a lot longer. I was born August of '74. I was told by my mother that even as a baby I didn't cry. If I cried, then my father would give me something to cry about, which was easy for him to do. He was an angry alcoholic. Without going into too much detail, every night was a house of horrors. He literally beat me every night. He would strip me nude and hit me with whatever he could find. There is more stuff that could be said, but it involves my mother and sister and not my story to tell. I was told that before he got into the stuff that he would give the shirt off his back to help anyone. But in my whole life, I only saw him sober once, as I was quite older. My memories till the age of 10 are very limited. Therapists have told me that I blacked out those memories. Going through recovery, I would hear someone's testimony, and it makes me remember things that I don't like, but I am dealing with as they arrive. When I was 10, one day my sister and I were home alone with my mother next door. I had a robe on and took the robe around my waist out of it. I tied it into a lasso and started chasing my sister. I threw the lasso into the air and caught the ceiling fan blade. It was then and there that I decided to be Tarzan. But the blade wasn't strong enough and broke. Mother came home to find me crying hysterically. I knew what was going to happen when Dad saw it. Mom tried frantically to superglue the blade together. I still remember how bad she was trembling, trying to fix it to no avail. She couldn't fix it and eventually told me to go to my room and wait for Dad. I still remember Dad coming home and yelling my name shortly after. He came into my room and proceeded to beat me bad. I don't remember how long it continued, but I remember Mother coming in asking, "Don't you think he's had enough?" He turned around and grabbed her by the hair and dragged her into the living room. He, after beating her, finally said he wanted a divorce. Up to that point, he told Mother that if she ever tried to leave him, he would find us and kill us. After my parents divorced, we moved to Michigan. I was 10. Even at that age, I said I would never be like my dad. Never would I guess how much I would end up like him as I got older. I can remember living with my Aunt Jenny, walking home with my cousins and sister from school when I was 11, and one of them said something bad about my dad. I blew up and started yelling and trying to get even with my cousins and sister. My aunt tried to defuse the situation to no avail. I was very angry all the time, and yes, I was erupting. When we got home, Jenny made my cousins and sister go inside, and she kept me out. She asked why I was so mad. I replied in typical fashion of a child, "I don't know." She asked me what I wanted to hit, if I wanted to hit something, and I answered yes. She told me then to start kicking the very large oak tree in the front yard. The kicking didn't last long before I started punching the tree, and I'm not fibbing when I say the bark was flying. Before my aunt could stop me, I was out of breath and bleeding. Again, she asked me why I was angry. Again, I said, "I don't know." She then asked me if I would feel better if I hit someone, and I quickly said yes. She told me to hit her in the arm, and man, I let her have it. One hit as hard as I could. Then she started crying. I realized then, not that I wouldn't hit anyone, but that I would never again hit a woman. That's one thing that I can say I wasn't like my father. And to this day, I have still not hit a woman. Although after 25 years being married, I have thought a lot about it. I'm just kidding, honey. I was never one of the popular kids and was almost always the one that was beaten up and picked on throughout my school years. I was a shorter, let's say thicker, messed up kid. I kept to myself, never shared my feelings, and got very angry over the smallest things, which I would also just hold it in, which we all know is just fuel for a bomb. I was about 12 when I got baptized and feel I did it just to get a little attention. I tried to do things the godly way, but I just didn't get it. At the age of 16, a junior in high school, I enlisted in the Marine Corps. When a senior in high school, I got engaged to a wonderful woman who would be the brunt of the start of my many issues to come. I left for boot camp after I graduated high school at 17. While in boot camp, I got 2 or 3 what they call back strains that would begin affecting my life from that point on. After I graduated boot camp, I was the stud I am not today. I found my love for alcohol very quickly. The weekends of schooling were usually several women and lots of beer. The worst part about this was that I was still engaged to a wonderful woman back home in Michigan. After I got off of the active duty schooling, I went back to Michigan and began to drink my new friend, Jack Daniels, to the tune of at least a fifth a night. I kept cheating on my fiancée and eventually ended the relationship. I let 2 friends move into my apartment, and soon after my life turned into one big party. We had parties every night, and everyone knew me. For once, I was everyone's friend, and everyone thought I was cool. At the parties, my room was off limits to anyone except women. If they went into my room, it was for my pleasure, and most of the time I didn't know or want to know their names. It pains me today to think of all the women that I treated like an object just to get what I wanted. Several showed interest in me, but I never let any of them into my life. It was all about what I wanted. In less than a year, I found myself in financial trouble from all the drinking. I tried to commit insurance fraud, and it didn't work. I ended up with 2 years of probation and lots of community service. While on probation, the party continued. The summer just before I turned 21, I went on my first date with my future wife. To tell the truth, I didn't even like her. All I wanted was another woman to get what I wanted. To my surprise, she told me no. The first one to do that I can remember. For some reason, I kept chasing, and she would eventually become my wife. I continued to drink, but I didn't drink Jack anymore. It made me very angry and mean. I knew how mean I got when I drank it, but to this day I can't explain any other way than to say it was God's hand that stopped it so easily because I liked it so much. Connie moved into my messed up life shortly after we started dating. It was clear that there was something there, but at the same time I was too dim-witted to see the woman that I had. In September of 96, we married. In January of 97, my wife gave birth to my beautiful daughter named Deanna. 3 months later, we found out that I was going to be a father again. Man, was I surprised. About halfway through our second pregnancy, we got into an argument and I went out. It took less than a year to break my vows. I didn't feel that after the stuff I had done prior to the marriage that anyone, let alone my wife, could love a guy like me. I never told Connie and had done what I had done, but eventually bad things have a way of showing up. I hate lying and suffered severe panic attacks. After 9 months, Connie received a phone call asking for my blood type. The gig was up. There was no more hiding. Connie was hurt, but she forgave me that same day. I'm ashamed to say that it took me doing something like that to finally see that I had a woman that really loved me. As time went on, I kept straining my back, according to doctors. I was taking painkillers like candy, and the doctor that I was seeing for my back eventually told me that the pain was in my head. Needless to say, that I started to believe her. I thought maybe it was. For several months, my family doctor would fill my scripts until one day he told me to come in. I explained what had happened with the doctor about my back. He ended up sending me to a neurosurgeon in Saginaw, Michigan. The doctor put my MRI on a light board, and in less than 30 seconds he said he knew what was wrong and showed me on the MRI what the other doctors had overlooked. I had a severe, rapidly progressing degenerative disc disease. Say that 10 times. I was actually relieved to know that it wasn't in my head. After several rounds of shots, tests, physical therapy, the doctor and I agreed to a new procedure that was going on up in Michigan. After the procedure, I was supposed to be off for 5 to 6 months. Due to financial reasons, I went back to work in 3. I was better for a while, but the pain slowly crept back into my life. Once I was out of the Marines, I always did what I wanted, no matter how dangerous. I've jumped off cliffs, climbed cliffs, raced cars, fought, and several other things. I love competition. I really love competition. And as my back got worse, I found that I was good at bowling, and it didn't hurt quite as much as some of the other things that I did. I started bowling 5, 6 nights a week. And at that point, I had 2 homes. A place that I slept at, work, and the bowling alley were my home. I was hardly ever home and left my wife to do everything without me. In October of 2001, Connie was due to give birth to my new son. I'm ashamed to say that I told her if she went into labor on bowling night, that I would be at the bowling alley and not with her. Luckily, I was not bowling on the day my son Stephen was born. Slowly, my pain was coming back with a vengeance. I couldn't even make it through a full game of bowling anymore. I tried to help the pain meds with alcohol, but nothing seemed to help. Eventually, the bowling stopped, and I would just go to work, come home, and be a monster to my wife and children. Connie would want to go to her sisters or go out with some friends, and I would never let her go. If she did go somewhere, I would call her every few minutes to bother her. Eventually, after 10 years working in the hospital, they felt that I was a danger to myself and my patients. I was constantly falling and constantly in pain. I was eating pain pills like candy and becoming more depressed. I had done everything my way, and now I was feeling like I was worthless. About 12 or 13 years ago, all the years of controlling and smothering finally broke her. She started hanging out with people I didn't like, and one night I demanded that she come home now or not at all. She came home, but it was just to get some things and leave. For a month, we didn't hardly see each other, and if we did see each other or talk on the phone, then in just a few seconds we would erupt. I think the hardest part for me was I depended on her for so much and didn't realize it until then. The other thing is, I knew she was lying to me about something, and I didn't know if I really wanted to know the truth. After about a month, the kids and I went to church, and at Sunday school class, I broke down and asked to be added to the prayer list. To this point, only a few people in the church knew the situation. I needed God to let me know what to do. As the preacher, the congregation prayed with me and for me. I knew it was the first time I humbly asked for anything from God. It didn't take God long to answer my prayer. Right after church, my mother took me and the kids to eat. And while there, Connie called me for the first time since the split up, wanting to talk. I mean, talk. I told her I would call her back because I couldn't hear her on the phone when I got home, and we left the restaurant for home shortly after I hung up with her. I got the kids in the house, then went back outside into the car to talk to Connie. Connie finally opened up and told me everything, and I think it was the right time. I might not have reacted the way I did if she had told me right away. After talking for 2 hours, I forgave her and asked if she was ready to come home, and she said yes. Then and there I said, I'm coming to get you. For a while, things were doing pretty good. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Fireproof, but in the movie they had a book called the Love Dare book. I got that book, and it started to change the way I thought about my wife. Things were going very well until a couple months later, we got into an argument about something that I can't even remember what it was, and I took my shotgun and drove to a store parking lot where I was ready to end it all. I don't know what was going on. All I know is that in my head, I was hearing voices telling me how worthless I was and I didn't deserve to live. Nasty, nasty things I was hearing. Then I remember hearing the phone ring. When I came to, I had the shotgun barrel in my mouth and my finger on the trigger. I believed that it was God telling me to stop, because when I picked up the phone, Connie had called me several times, and I'm not talking 10 times, I'm talking more, a lot more. But the only one I heard was that one, which was the last one I heard. After this incident, I promised Connie that I would never do anything like that again. I realized one thing was that the pills I was taking made me care less about anything in my life, whether it was good or bad. It was at that point that I decided to stop taking all my pain pills. I would rather hurt and know what I'm doing than be numb and dumb. It started getting to where I was in bed all the time because I was miserable and in lots of pain due to the weather, which was up in Michigan, mostly cold. In February of 2011, my aunt in Enterprise, Alabama passed away, and my mother asked me if I wanted to go with her to the funeral. For some reason, while I was down there, I felt as though I wanted to come back. When I got back to Michigan, I talked to my wife about the things I was thinking. She ran with it. She had emailed the owner of the McDonald's in Enterprise and ended up with an interview in Michigan at the airport because he happened to be there. And the owner really liked her, and she was guaranteed the job. He's a really good guy. In the spring of 2011, we were on our way to be Alabama residents. Me again, her for the first time. Everything felt so right. It's the first time that everything was working perfectly. We had a place to live, my wife had a job, and we were excited. It was the first time my wife had ever lived out of state, but she was really liking it. It wasn't long before we found our new church. This church started to change the way I was thinking about God. All the sermons were pertaining to life situations and easy to understand. While there, Connie and I met a woman, and she'd seen that I was pretty good at talking to people and good at listening. This was the beginning when they were talking about starting a Celebrate Recovery in our town. She told me I would be a good leader, so when I started attending, I was there to help. I didn't need help. Little did I know how messed up I really was. Of all the counselors I've ever been to, nothing has ever made me feel the way I did when at recovery. At first it took a little while because I felt I didn't have the same problems as everyone else. But it wasn't until I was attending for a while that I realized emotional pain in most cases is almost always the same. From that point, God has continued me on a road to recovery. He has taken me on a very slow pace because I'm not smart enough to go any faster. When I felt as though I was getting tired of just attending CR, I was invited to join a step study. I wasn't in over a few lessons when I started to see the things that I had wrong with me. The healing was going good, but I was getting really nervous about forgiveness. I couldn't even forgive myself, let alone 2 or 3 people that I really thought had better never see me in a dark alley. All the times that I had free time to think these people are always in my head, making me angrier and angrier. Every time I asked my sponsor or accountability partner, they would tell me to just keep working the steps in order. I need to work them in order to get the full effect. They were right. Around lesson 17, I heard it twice, read it twice, until I finally realized that there was a note at the bottom of one of the pages that said, just because you forgive someone does not mean what they did was okay. That is so true. For me, that put it into perspective, and I was able to continue on the road I was on. I was able to forgive myself. I told my close accountability partner and sponsor some of the things I never told anybody else. And just to get off my shoulders was such a great relief. I was also able to forgive those 2 or 3 other people. After about 5 years of good and happy recovery, I started to slip with something that I had never addressed with anyone, including my wife, which was the voices in my head. They were terrible and extremely loud. I was making excuses for the things I was doing in recovery and pulling away from everything good. After I stopped going to recovery, I spent most of my days alone and sitting on the back porch doing nothing but hurting, smoking tons of cigarettes, and listening to the voices pull me down deeper. At some point, I can't really remember the date, but I lost myself, and I was falling into a hole that had no mud. There was no more sinking. I was there. At least I knew enough from my recovery to call my wife at work and tell her I need to go to the hospital. At hospital, they asked me if I wanted to be sent to a unit. And I agreed. The unit was horrible. And I was sent to. The only good thing that came out of it was after a week, they said that to be released, I had to have a psychiatrist within 10 days. And I did. Best thing that ever happened to my head. I have since found out that I have PTSD and am bipolar. I take my meds every day and will continue to do so. I'm happier than I've ever been. Over the last few years, I have spent time back in recovery and my journey of self-discovery with God. I met a preacher named Calvin that had a huge impact on my life. I hope you're listening, brother. I love you so much. He has been a big inspiration for the direction I'm heading and the fire burning inside me for recovery in self and church. I now know that all the times I badmouthed God because I felt he wasn't with me, now I realize he was with me the whole way. When we were living with my father, I'm still alive. When my father told my mother to get a divorce, he saw fit to make sure that the judge got us out of the situation as fast as possible. When I was drinking all the time, he eventually made me see the light. When my marriage was on the rocks, he brought us back together. When I felt my life had no meaning and I was ready to end it, he snapped me out of it. When I was at my worst with my pain and bad-mouthing him every chance I could get, he sent me and my family on a journey. When I was losing my mind, he fixed it better than ever and rebooted it with healthy new software. He has been with me every step of the way, whether I realized it or not, and I am very, very thankful. With my anger, I have never been one to have very many friends, but now I have more than I can shake a stick at. I am happier in my life now than I've ever been. Now that I see the things that God is doing to me, I see the things that he does to others in their lives because I'm not completely focused on me. My marriage blossoms more every day, and I wouldn't have it any other way. God has blessed me with a beautiful, understanding wife, 4 children, and so far, 3 gorgeous grandkids. I remember asking God for several other women to be my wife, but he knew which one I needed, and man, he was right. I am and always will be a Marine. I live my life by the motto, God, country, Corps. Just not in that order. Let me explain. God will always come first in my life. He is that important. Corps comes next. To me, that is the family, and as I said, when I received my 1-year token, my wife is on a pedestal right below God, and above me, my children are right below my wife. When I say country, it is not my government, it is all of you. All my friends that I care about so much. My outlook on life is one of hope, where there is none before. I'd like to say thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Please remember, stay strong, stand firm, stay the path, and stay faithful. I love y'all, and God bless.